everybody. Thank you for coming today. We are celebrating 25 years since the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Yoo-hoo! We can no longer be evicted because of our disability. We can no longer be fired. We can no longer not be hired because of our disability. And I really, really am thrilled that we are here today.
I think that, in some circumstances, people take one look at me and they judge me to be something I'm not. My main disability is cerebral palsy, and because of that, I have some low visual acuity, and I have trouble with coordination. I grew up with a real spirit of independence because I was born in the 50s and grew up in the 60s, and in those days, a number of young people were expected to sort of overcompensate to look normal, to act normal. I think the ADA has been a good springboard. All human beings need to be needed, and I think we can go back to employment, that everybody would like to be gainfully employed, I believe. Many people with disabilities have so many good skills, that people aren't aware of.
In 1973, started playing rock and roll on the radio, and that was a lot of fun. And nobody could see me. Everybody was very surprised when they would see me in a public place that I was a blind person. The consequence of that was I finally realized that it was odd for a person with a disability to be out working.
If we didn't have the ADA, there'd be nothing for people like myself to fall back on. My disability is a T3-4 injury, so everything I have is from my arms up, so everything is literally done with my arms. It was New Year's Eve. I had gone down with a friend who was also in a wheelchair. He had to go to the bathroom. There's a series of 4 or 5 90-degree turns, but it wasn't wide enough for his wheelchair. It was a little bit wider. Nor was it wide enough for mine to make all the turns to get in. And it did put a sour note on the New Year's Eve. Probably about 5 months later, I actually called the Disability Rights Center and I said, this is what happened. And then they said, you actually have something here. Larry Gagan he bent over backwards, and now it's completely accessible for anybody.
Within the next 25 years, people will just, if they hear somebody talking about institutions, talking about employment discrimination, they will just scratch their heads and say, did we used to lock people up simply because they had a disability? Did we deny them jobs simply because they had a disability, housing simply because they had a disability, or discriminated against them in any way?
I had a hard life growing up. It was limited communication with my family and hard to find jobs too. I was born hearing until I was sick later on in childhood from spinal meningitis, which is how I became deaf. Communication was indeed a challenge with my classmates, with faculty at the school, and later on in life. I love my work, I love the activity, I love keeping busy, but the communication isolation is ridiculous. It just is so hard. I sit in the lunchroom and eat by myself, and there's nobody to talk to, and I notice coworkers laughing or having conversation, and I don't know what they're saying. I wish there would be an interpreter, but of course that's not realistic. Without the ADA, it would be a tough life. I would not be happy. I think we need to keep the ADA and fight for it to be strong.
It's speaking up for your rights that actually has accomplished the change. Sometimes you wind up getting things which you may not get if you had to fight for them legally, but you end up getting because people's attitudes have changed so dramatically. Sometimes we still have denied access that I think may be reasonable accommodations. I wish I could tell you that I've never been denied a public accommodation, but I can't tell you that truthfully. And so you gotta keep moving the world and keep changing the world.
I think there's still a predominant view in this country of disability being a purely medical issue. I tend to look at disability in more of a social realm. I tend to look at disability as as it's one aspect of who I am. Well, I have cerebral palsy, and I also have some mental health disabilities as well. Growing up with a disability, I got tons of attention, positive attention, but once puberty hit, it just threw me for a loop. And I really didn't know where I fit in. I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. I didn't see a lot of people with disabilities that were in the community that were successful. I think there's a cycle of poverty that happens. I think we can only earn so much before our benefits get cut off, which again, a lot of us need for medical reasons. We're not looked at as capable. We're looked at as people to be taken care of and not people that can contribute. And that's what I think a lot of us fight against every single day.
The exciting thing about this day is that there are people with all kinds of different disabilities from all over this state together. So I hope you guys, will you join in song with me before we close? I gotta have some help. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome.